My name is Mark Henry. I'm the owner, vineyardist, winemaker, tour guide, historian at Montoliva Vineyard and Winery, located in the North Sierra foothill community of Chicago Park. Chicago Park is a small agricultural community that got its name actually when it was settled in 1882 by a group of Italian Americans who moved here from Chicago. So I came down here from Seattle in 2000 to do exactly what I'm doing here, which is growing Central and Southern Italian varietals and making Old World style wines. Why Central and Southern Italian, you ask? Frankly, it's what I personally prefer to drink. My professional training isn't even in winemaking. My professional training is in beer making. I was a brewer up in Seattle. I got bored with making beer. Didn't get bored drinking it, but I got bored making it. I decided I wanted to make wine instead, and one of the best pieces of advice that I got when I decided to do this was from a winemaker up in Seattle who, over a few beers one night, actually tried to talk me out of this. From his perspective, beer was much cooler. That whole grass is always greener thing. When he saw he wasn't going to talk me out of it, he said, well, okay, Mark, he said, if you're going to do this, he said, my advice to you is to stay small. Don't produce more than 200 cases of any one thing, and only make wines that you personally enjoy drinking. Now I asked him, I said, now why is that? He said, Mark, there's over 3,000 wineries in California. You might be the only one drinking it, so you better like it. Yeah, he almost talked me out of it, but obviously he didn't. Philosophically though, that made a lot of sense. Make the kind of wines that you like to drink, and I have a personal preference for the drier, earthier red wines of Central and Southern Italy. So I came to the North Sierra foothills because the geology of this area is remarkably similar to the geology of Central and Southern Italy. I actually started making wine in my family room. In 2005, I got my family room federally bonded as a winery, moved the sofas and the TV and the kids upstairs, pulled out the carpets, redecorated with oak barrels. I made about 300 cases of wine a year out of my family room. I built my current winery in 2008, moved into it, turned my family room back into a family room, although I never released the federal bond on it. So I probably have the only family room in all of America that is federally bonded as a winery. But I basically do everything myself. I do all my own vineyarding, I do all my own winemaking, I do all my own bottling, I do all my own marketing, I'm the delivery guy, I'm the sales guy. It is a lot of work, but as I like to tell people, it beats the heck out of having a job. I had one of those once. Didn't really care for it. Montoliva Vineyard Winery is, in terms of California size, a very, very small winery. In the state of California, small wineries are typically defined as ones that produce less than 20,000 cases of wine a year. I produce about 1,500. So I'm really small. These barrels actually all contain wines from the 2015 vintage. They were harvested just a couple of months ago, fermented, pressed, put into barrel. They'll sit outside here through the winter. There's really no reason not to have them sitting outside because it stays cool enough. The staves of these barrels actually are a couple of inches thick, so they insulate really well. By this next spring, however, these guys will have to be inside the winery where I keep things more temperature controlled. It used to be, back in the old days, 7-8 years ago, that once harvest was over, I was pretty much done for a while. I could catch my breath, maybe catch up on a few books that I was wanting to read. That's not really so much the case anymore. Now that harvest is over, I've got these guys sitting outside. The only way I can get them inside is to get some things bottled. This year, I reached a fairly interesting milestone. When I started out in this business, of course, I've gotten to know a lot of the other winemakers in this region. And one of my mentors, if you will, for this region is Phil Starr over at Sierra Star Winery. One of the things that he told me many years ago, he said, you're really in this deep when you start marking your personal timeline by how many harvests you have left. With this harvest, and with each harvest, of course, your thought process starts to become, well, this needs to be really, really good, and I need to not screw this up because I've only got X number of harvests left. I found myself doing that for the first time this year. This was our 10th harvest, and I found myself about halfway through harvest thinking, well, this is coming along pretty well. The grapes ripen nicely. I better not screw this up because, well, I may only have like 15 more left. So it's a rather interesting way that winemakers will start to mark the passage of time, how many vintages we think we have left.